The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glow over the sterile office. The air was thick with tension as Marlena stood at the center of it all, her hands trembling slightly but her gaze unwavering. Across from her sat Victor Langston, her boss for only 3 months, though his presence felt like an eternity. His sharp suit and colder demeanor made him look every bit the corporate predator he'd been hired to be. Behind him loomed 2 security guards, their bulky forms adding insult to injury. "You're done," Victor said flatly, his voice devoid of any emotion. He didn't even glance up as he slid a single sheet of paper across the desk, a termination letter. "Effective immediately." Marlena blinked once, then twice, trying to process what was happening. She'd given 30 years of her life to this company, rising through the ranks with grit and determination until she became Senior Vice President of Operations. 30 years of late nights, missed birthdays, sacrificed vacations, all gone in one breathless sentence delivered by someone half her age who barely knew how to spell synergy, let alone lead a team. "This is about optics, isn't it?" she asked finally, her tone calm despite the storm brewing inside her chest. "You think firing me makes you look tough?" Victor's lips curled into something between a smirk and a sneer. "It's not personal, Marlena. It's business." She wanted to laugh or scream, but instead, she took a deep breath, steadying herself. There would be time for anger later. Right now, she needed clarity. "And does business include ignoring my contract? Because I'm pretty sure there are clauses that require more than just your word before they kick someone like me out." His jaw tightened ever so slightly, betraying the first crack in his carefully constructed facade. But he recovered quickly, leaning back in his chair with an air of indifference. "Legal will sort it out. Don't worry about the details, we'll make sure you're compensated fairly." Compensated fairly. The words hung in the air like poison. Fair compensation after 3 decades of loyalty wasn't supposed to come wrapped in shame and dismissal. Still, Marlena nodded slowly, masking her fury behind a practiced mask of professionalism. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her break down, not here, not now. As the security guards escorted her to her desk to collect her belongings, whispers rippled through the open-plan workspace. Her colleagues pretended to work, heads bowed over keyboards and tablets, but their eyes darted toward her, wide with shock and pity. Some offered sympathetic smiles, others avoided meeting her gaze altogether. None dared to speak. Her assistant, Rachel, hovered nearby, visibly shaken. "I can help you pack," she murmured softly, glancing nervously at the guards. "No thank you," Marlena replied firmly, though her voice softened when she added, "but I appreciate it." She didn't want anyone else dragged into this mess. This was her fight, and hers alone. The box they provided was flimsy, barely large enough to hold the framed photos of her family, the awards lining her shelves, or the stress ball shaped like a globe that had seen better days. As she packed, each item seemed to carry its own weight of memories: the photo of her daughter graduating college, the plaque commemorating her role in turning around a failing division, the sticky notes scribbled with reminders and motivational quotes. Each one told a story of hard work, sacrifice, and triumph. And now, they were being reduced to relics of a career cut short. When she reached for the bottom drawer of her desk, her fingers brushed against something unexpected, a manila envelope tucked away in the corner. Pulling it free, she froze. It was labeled Contract Addendum, Confidential. She hadn't seen this before. Curiosity mingled with dread as she flipped it open, scanning the contents quickly. Her heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just some minor clause buried in fine print. This was a bombshell. Victor thought he could sweep her out the door without consequence, making an example of her to assert his authority. What he didn't know, and what this document revealed, was that her departure triggered an automatic audit of the company's financial records. Specifically, the last 5 years of expenditures under senior management. 5 years during which Victor had been climbing the ladder, leaving whispers of questionable decisions in his wake. For the first time since entering the office that morning, Marlena allowed herself a small private smile. If Victor wanted to play rough, she was ready. But this wasn't about revenge, it was about justice. Justice for herself, yes, but also for everyone else who'd suffered under his ruthless ambition. "Are you almost finished?" one of the guards asked gruffly, snapping her back to reality. She closed the envelope and slipped it into her bag, her movements deliberate and unhurried. "Almost," she said evenly, meeting his gaze with quiet defiance. Then, turning to Rachel, she added, "Take care of yourself, okay?" And don't let anyone intimidate you. Rachel nodded, tears welling in her eyes. You too, Marlena. With that, Marlena walked out of the office, her head held high. The glass doors slid shut behind her, sealing off the world she'd known for so long. Outside, the city buzzed with life, oblivious to the drama unfolding within those walls. For a moment, she simply stood there, breathing in the crisp autumn air, letting the cool breeze wash over her face. But she wasn't defeated, not yet. Not while she still had cards to play. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Marlena spent hours poring over the contract addendum, cross-referencing it with emails, memos, and reports she'd saved over the years. Every line, every detail, painted a clearer picture of Victor's rise to power, and the skeletons hidden in his closet. Meanwhile, news of her firing spread like wildfire, sparking outrage among former colleagues and industry insiders alike. Social media lit up with hashtags like #JusticeForMarlena and #CorporateBullyingExposed, amplifying her story far beyond what she'd anticipated. At first, Victor dismissed the backlash as mere noise. People always side with the victim, he scoffed during a tense board meeting. But none of this changes the fact that she's gone, and we're moving forward. What he failed to realize was that Marlena wasn't content to fade into obscurity. Using her network of contacts, she began reaching out to key players in the industry, sharing snippets of information that hinted at deeper issues within the company. Journalists started calling, eager to uncover the truth. Lawyers circled like vultures, sensing blood in the water. And then came the official notice: the audit was underway. Victor tried to brush it off at first, insisting that everything was above board. But as subpoenas arrived and investigators combed through files, cracks began to show. Suspicious transactions. Inflated expense reports. Questionable partnerships. Each discovery sent ripples through the organization, eroding trust and exposing the rot beneath the polished surface. Through it all, Marlena remained a steady presence, guiding the process from the shadows. She attended meetings with auditors, provided documentation, and answered questions with precision and poise. Yet she refused to step into the spotlight, knowing that patience was her greatest weapon. Let Victor squirm. Let him scramble to cover his tracks. The truth would come out eventually, and when it did, it would be undeniable. One evening, as she sat in her home office surrounded by stacks of papers and glowing laptop screens, her phone buzzed with an incoming call. It was Rachel. Hey, the younger woman said hesitantly. I hope I'm not interrupting anything. Not at all, Marlena replied warmly. How are things holding up on your end? Rachel sighed. It's chaotic. People are scared. Victor's acting like nothing's wrong, but everyone knows something big is coming. I wanted to check in. Make sure you're okay. Marlena smiled faintly, touched by the concern. I'm fine, Rachel. More than fine, actually. This is exactly where I need to be right now. There was a pause, followed by a hesitant question. Do you think it's worth it? All of this? I mean, it's taking such a toll on everyone. Marlena leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling as she considered the question. Worth it. Such a simple phrase, yet loaded with complexity. Was it worth losing sleep, risking retaliation, watching friends and colleagues endure uncertainty? Yes, she decided. Because sometimes, standing up for what's right means enduring hardship. Sometimes, change requires sacrifice. It's worth it, she said finally, her voice firm. Because if we don't hold people accountable, nothing will ever change. And trust me, Rachel, this isn't just about me. It's about setting a precedent. About saying no to bullies like Victor, no matter how powerful they think they are. Rachel was silent for a moment, then whispered, You're amazing, you know that? Marlena chuckled softly. I'm just doing what needs to be done. Now enough about me. How are you holding up? As Rachel launched into an update about office gossip and internal tensions, Marlena listened intently, offering advice and reassurance where needed. Even in the midst of chaos, she found solace in these moments of connection. They reminded her why she'd fought so hard for so long, to create a workplace where people felt valued, respected, and heard. Later that night, as she prepared for bed, Marlena paused to look out her bedroom window. The city skyline glittered in the distance, a tapestry of light and shadow. Somewhere out there, Victor was likely pacing his penthouse suite, plotting his next move. But she wasn't afraid. Whatever happened next, she was ready. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in weeks, Marlena allowed herself a moment of quiet confidence. She had justice on her side, and that, she knew, was a force to be reckoned with. The audit dragged on for weeks, each day bringing new revelations that sent shockwaves through the company. Victor's carefully constructed empire began to crumble under the weight of scrutiny, and his usual bravado started to falter. Board members who once praised his bold leadership now avoided eye contact during meetings. Whispers turned into murmurs, then outright accusations as evidence piled up against him. Yet despite the mounting pressure, Victor clung to denial like a lifeline. "It's all circumstantial," he snapped during one particularly tense session with the auditors. His tailored suit hung slightly loose on his frame. Stress had taken its toll. "You're chasing ghosts here." Marlena watched from afar as the drama unfolded, her role shifting from passive observer to strategic advisor. She worked closely with the investigative team, guiding them toward key documents and flagging suspicious patterns in the data. Her decades of experience gave her an unparalleled understanding of the company's inner workings, and she wielded that knowledge like a scalpel, cutting through layers of obfuscation to expose the truth. But it wasn't just about dismantling Victor's reign of terror, it was about rebuilding something better in its place. Late at night, when the rest of the world seemed asleep, Marlena drafted proposals for systemic reforms, transparent reporting structures, whistleblower protections, and mentorship programs designed to empower employees at every level. These weren't just ideas, they were blueprints for change, born out of years of frustration with corporate dysfunction. One evening, as she reviewed a draft of her recommendations, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was an unknown number. Hesitant but curious, she answered. "Marlena." The voice on the other end was familiar yet unexpected. It belonged to Daniel Hart, a former colleague who had left the company years ago after clashing with upper management. "I heard about what's going on. Thought you might need some backup." She smiled faintly, touched by the gesture. "Daniel, it's been ages. How are you?" "Better than Victor, I imagine," he quipped, his tone light but serious beneath the surface. "Look, I don't have much love for that place anymore, but I can't sit back while someone like him gets away with this kind of nonsense. If there's anything I can do to help, testifying, digging up old records, whatever, you name it." For the first time in weeks, Marlena felt a flicker of hope that extended beyond her own resolve. Allies were stepping forward, people who shared her vision of accountability and fairness. Together, they could turn this scandal into an opportunity, not just to oust a bad actor, but to spark meaningful transformation. Meanwhile, Victor grew increasingly desperate. He called emergency meetings, issued vague statements about misunderstandings, and even tried to discredit Marlena publicly, accusing her of orchestrating the audit as some sort of vendetta. But the more he lashed out, the more transparent his motives became. Employees began sharing stories of his abusive behavior, the offhand insults disguised as jokes, the promotions dangled like carrots only to be snatched away, the blatant favoritism that left talented individuals sidelined. Rachel became a key figure in gathering these accounts, quietly collecting testimonies from colleagues who had long feared speaking up. "They trust you," she told Marlena during one of their frequent check-ins. "And knowing you're behind this gives them courage." Courage. The word resonated deeply with Marlena. Courage wasn't just about standing up to bullies, it was about creating spaces where others felt safe enough to do the same. With Rachel's help, she compiled the stories into a dossier, presenting them to the board alongside the audit findings. The message was clear: Victor's actions weren't isolated incidents, they were part of a toxic culture that needed to be dismantled. As the investigation reached its climax, tensions within the company reached a breaking point. Morale plummeted, productivity stalled, and rumors swirled about potential layoffs or even bankruptcy. Yet amidst the chaos, small acts of resistance began to emerge. Employees organized informal support groups, shared resources, and rallied around those most affected by Victor's policies. Even some mid-level managers, previously too afraid to challenge him, started pushing back, demanding transparency and accountability. Marlena found herself at the center of this grassroots movement, though she resisted taking on a formal leadership role. Instead, she focused on amplifying voices that had long been silenced. At town halls and virtual forums, she encouraged workers to speak openly about their experiences, assuring them that their stories mattered. Slowly but surely, the narrative shifted, from fear and division to solidarity and empowerment. Despite the progress, Marlena knew the fight wasn't over. Victor still held significant power, and his allies on the board were doing everything in their power to protect him. Legal battles loomed on the horizon, threatening to drag the process out for months, or even years. But Marlena refused to let exhaustion or doubt derail her mission. Every setback was another chance to regroup, refocus, and push harder. One afternoon, as she prepared for yet another round of depositions, her phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "Victor called me into his office today. Tried to intimidate me into recanting my testimony. I stood my ground." Marlena's heart swelled with pride and anger. She replied immediately, "You're braver than you know. Don't let him rattle you. We've got this." Moments later, Rachel responded, "Thanks to you we do." Those words stayed with Marlena long after she set her phone aside. They reminded her why she'd chosen this path, why she'd sacrificed so much to see it through. It wasn't just about justice for herself, it was about proving that courage could inspire courage, that standing up for what's right could ignite a chain reaction of positive change. That evening, as she reviewed the latest batch of evidence, Marlena allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The road ahead would be long and difficult, fraught with challenges she couldn't yet anticipate. But she no longer doubted whether it was worth it. For the first time in years, she felt truly alive, not because of the battle itself, but because of the possibilities it represented. Outside her window, the city lights twinkled like stars, each one a reminder of the countless lives touched by this struggle. Somewhere out there, people were watching, waiting, hoping. And Marlena knew, deep down, that they wouldn't be disappointed. The fight wasn't just hers anymore, it belonged to everyone who believed in a better future. And together, they were unstoppable. The final showdown came on a crisp autumn morning, the kind where the air feels electric with possibility. The boardroom was packed, executives, auditors, lawyers, and even a few reporters invited to witness the culmination of months of investigation. At the head of the table sat Victor Langston, his usual arrogance replaced by a thin veneer of desperation. Across from him, Marlena stood tall, flanked by Rachel, Daniel, and a team of allies who had rallied to her side. The meeting began with a presentation from the lead auditor, whose findings painted a damning picture of Victor's tenure. Misappropriated funds, falsified reports, unethical partnerships, it was all there in black and white. As each slide appeared on the screen, Victor's face grew paler, his attempts to deflect or downplay the evidence falling flat under the weight of irrefutable proof. When it was Marlena's turn to speak, she stepped forward without hesitation. Her voice was steady, her words measured but powerful. "This isn't just about one man's misconduct," she said, addressing the room. "It's about the culture that allowed it to happen, a culture of fear, favoritism, and impunity. Today, we have an opportunity to change that. To hold ourselves accountable and build something better." Her speech resonated deeply, earning nods of agreement from nearly everyone present. Even some of Victor's staunchest defenders shifted uncomfortably in their seats, unable to refute the mountain of evidence before them. When she finished, the room erupted into applause, a rare moment of unity in what had been a fractured organization. Victor tried to salvage his position, pleading for leniency and promising reforms, but his words rang hollow. The board voted unanimously to terminate his contract immediately, stripping him of his title and severing ties with any entities linked to his misconduct. The decision sent shockwaves through the industry, sparking headlines like "Corporate Bully Brought Down by Whistleblower Hero" and "Justice Prevails, How One Woman Changed the Game." But the victory didn't stop there. Buoyed by the momentum of the audit's success, Marlena worked tirelessly to implement the reforms she'd proposed. Transparent reporting structures were established, whistleblower protections were enshrined in company policy, and mentorship programs flourished, creating pathways for overlooked talent to rise. Employees who had once feared retaliation now felt empowered to voice their concerns, knowing they would be heard. Rachel became a key figure in these efforts, rising through the ranks to take on a leadership role within the newly reformed operations department. "You made this possible," she told Marlena one day, tears glistening in her eyes. "Not just for me, but for everyone." Marlena smiled, humbled by the gratitude. "We did this together," she replied. "And we're just getting started." As the months passed, the company underwent a remarkable transformation. Morale soared, productivity skyrocketed, and profits rebounded as clients returned, impressed by the organization's newfound commitment to integrity. Marlena, meanwhile, found herself celebrated not just as a whistleblower but as a visionary leader. Awards poured in, speeches were given, and invitations to speak at conferences flooded her inbox. Yet despite the accolades, she remained grounded, always redirecting praise to the collective effort that had made it all possible. One evening, as she stood on the balcony of her apartment overlooking the city, Marlena reflected on how far she'd come. The journey had been grueling, filled with moments of doubt and fear, but it had also been profoundly rewarding. She thought of the lives touched by the changes she'd helped bring about, the young professionals inspired to dream bigger, the seasoned veterans emboldened to speak up, the countless others who now believed in the power of standing up for what's right. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from Daniel, *, just saw your interview. You're changing the world, one step at a time. *. She chuckled softly, typing back, *, we're changing it together. *. Later that night, as she settled into bed with a book, Marlena felt a deep sense of peace. She hadn't set out to become a hero, but in fighting for justice, she discovered a strength she never knew she possessed. More importantly, she'd reminded herself, and countless others, that courage is contagious, that even the smallest act of defiance can spark a revolution. And so, as the city lights twinkled outside her window, Marlena drifted off to sleep, knowing she'd left the world a little brighter than she'd found it. The battle may have ended, but the legacy of hope and resilience lived on, a testament to the enduring power of doing what's right, no matter the cost. Her story wasn't just hers anymore, it belonged to everyone who dared to believe in a better tomorrow. And that, she realized, was the happiest ending of all.